Yogaha Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Rengasamy, presently working as an assistant professor and assistant registrar academics, and also heading the Center for Criminology and Criminal Justice of Maharashtra National Law University, Nagpur. I am here to have a good and fruitful time with you all, discussing the topic, India's punishment philosophy and policy. Where we are now and what is the need for this 21st century, my dear friends. Before getting into the topic, I would like to thank Professor Joshi, a professor and director of HRDC of Gujarat University, for giving me such a good opportunity to interact with you all through this video mode. And I also thankful to Professor Dr. Bhavesh Bharat, professor from School of Law, Gujarat University, for organizing this wonderful refresher course to you all from the background of law, my dear friends. My dear friends, there are good number of reform committees. There are good number of jail reform committees framed by India government before independence, after independence. Those committees, starting from All India Jail Committee 1919 and 1922, very recent committee headed by Justice A.N. Mullah. All these committees, my dear friends, and also many state committees, all these committees actually recommended good number of reforms for the welfare of the society and for the positive development of criminal justice administration. My dear friends, to understand the India's punishment philosophy and policy, we need to understand the general punishment philosophy and theories emerged across the world. To understand the punishment philosophies, my dear friends, we need to understand the crime, the criminological theories. Before understanding the criminological theories, we need to start with the basic understanding towards crime and deviance. My dear friends, this session is kind of, a rewinding session. I am going back and bringing you all to the present Indian punishment philosophy, my dear friends. My dear friends, when it's come to crime, what is crime? What is deviance? My dear friends, you cannot actually answer in a straightforward way. Why? Because crime or a deviant, which is labeled as a deviant act or is a crime, it is not actually depends on one single factor, my dear friends. It depends on many factors. It depends on, location. It depends on audience. It depends on the individual who is committing that act. For example, my dear friends, if you take listening to the iPod. Listening to the iPod is a crime. People say immediately, sir, now I am listening to this video by using the iPod only or an AirPod only or a headphone only. How come you will say listening to the music or using the AirPod or iPod listening to the music? That's not a crime. How you will say it's a crime? But my dear friends, take a note of it. I am all alone, right? During my private time, listening to a music by using my AirPod or an iPod and relaxing myself. La la la, not a crime, of course, yes. My dear friends, when you are in your office working with your colleagues, and when your colleagues are seriously discussing about one particular subject, at that point of time you are listening to music and distracting them, la la la, of course it is not a crime, but it is not an acceptable act. But same, you are listening to the iPod. In the earlier situation and earlier location and earlier when you are individually committing, that is not a serious matter. But when you are doing it along with your friends, when they are busy with their works, academic works, that considered as something unacceptable. Second scenario, right? And third scenario, my dear friends, when your vice chancellor or principal called for a meeting, and or your pro-chancellor or a government officer called for a meeting, and that point of time you are sitting in the meeting hall and listening to the airport. What happens? Then that is considered a very serious act. You will be given issue memo by your vice chancellor or an immediate officer. अरे क्या कर रही आप? जाओ लेके चलो memo or suspension order even. Same airport, my dear friends, listening to airport. So in a first scenario, it is not considered as a serious act or a deviance act, but in second scenario, it's deviance. Third scenario, it's very serious. And the fourth scenario, my dear friends, when you're in a witness box, in front of Supreme Court Chief Justice, in Supreme Court of India, listening to an iPod, it's an offense, contempt of the court, and you will be sent to the jail. Right? So my dear friends, what actually makes that act a deviance act or a criminal act? It is not because of that act only, but it is also because of many factors, including location, audience, and individual, those who are committing those acts. My dear friends, if you think, the norms vary across culture and time, my dear friends. It makes sense that notions of deviance and crime also, changes, right? 50 years ago, if you take 50 years ago, in India, same India, in a public school and in colleges, where dress code is very strict, especially among students, college men, very strict dress code. A boy should wear this kind of dress only, a girl should wear this kind of dress only. But now, of course, it's now because of completely everything online. We don't know what kind of dress they are wearing only. Right? There is no point in that only. So now that it keeps on changes. Now, and earlier 50 years ago, wearing pant was banned to women, but it is not now. Of course, wearing skirt is not permitted even now because of because of the societal thing. Today's women wearing pant is socially accepted, but my dear friends, less for women to wear a skirt, my dear friends. My dear friends, moving on to the crime part, there are many definitions given by different people, right? William Graham Sumner. Moving on to the PPT slide. Graham Sumner said deviance and crime is a violation of established contextual, cultural or social norms, whether folkways, mores or codified law. It can be minor as picking from nose of others, or it can as major as committing a murder, my dear friends. Although one thing you need to note it down here, my dear friends, the crime, deviance and crime, it is always said in a negative connotation in our everyday language, but sociologists recognize deviance and crime is not necessarily bad. It is also good, because from the structural functionalist perspective, one positive contribution of deviance and crime is that it fosters the social change, my dear friends. Fosters social change. For example, if you take US civil rights movement, there's such a huge civil rights movement organized in US. That how it was actually sparked? One individual named Rosa Parks, she violated the social norm which was followed, that when she refused in that bus to move from the black section of moved to black section of the bus. People said, you go and stand in the black section. She said, she refused it. From that point, it actually triggered the whole US civil movement, my dear friend. That's the reason sociologists always says, because most of the social changes actually brought into this world because of certain kind of devious movement only, deviance act of one individual only. So therefore, my dear friends, deviance is not always bad, it is also good only. Coming to the point, my dear friends, crime and punishment. So when we are talking about crime and punishment, we cannot able to neglect Professor Emile Durkheim, a founder, one of the founding sociologists of this world, and from the French background. Emile Durkheim, his work is, its contribution to the society is a lot. And one among the contribution, he worked on sociology of religion, he worked on sociology of division of labor, he worked on suicidal theories, he worked on solidarity. In solidarity, under that solidarity, he explains two different types of social solidarity. One is organic solidarity, another one is mechanical solidarity. Mechanical solidarity, which is actually prevalent in the simple society. When we are actually started our society, at that point of time, society is very simple. The stratification is less. People did all their works together. Similar kind of works. Everyone did all kind of works together. And people knows everyone individually. Therefore, the solidarity, that integration, cooperation and coordination among the people, which is very mechanical, automatic in nature. But when society develops from simple society to compound society to complex society to doubly complex to triply complex, when it develops from, in a simple sentence, from a small rural village to a top level metropolitan city like Delhi, Bombay, Ahmedabad or Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, whatever you can take, all these metropolitan cities, those metropolitan cities are once definitely a small village, right? So society emerged. When society emerged from simple society to complex or doubly complex, triply complex society, the solidarity also changed into different dimensions. That is called as from mechanical solidarity to organic solidarity. Here solidarity is based on similarity, but there solidarity is based on interdependence. So how he connects with law and punishment, my dear friends, if anyone actually commits any kind of mistakes or crime in the society, that actually affects a whole group, because everyone know each other and it severely affects the society. Therefore, in a simple society where mechanic solidarity is actually prevalent, in that kind of society, what kind of law or what kind of punishment is required is, he said, retributive, which is very serious punishments. But when it's come to organic society or organic solidarity or a complex society, people don't know each other, and that point of time we need to focus more on the rehabilitative and restorative process, bringing back that to the existing state. The law punishment should focus more on that point of time. The first person who explained this concept of philosophy, that is Emile Durkheim, my dear friends. Later on, many people actually developed. One side, crime and approach towards crime is also, changed and emerged with the same way, and towards from there, that with that change, the punishment theories and philosophies also changed and emerged, my dear friends. Moving on to the next, what comes here? Social control comes here, my dear friends. See, crime is not good for society, of course, but Emile Durkheim said, no society exists without crime also. Because one aspect, crime is not good for society, and on the other aspect, crime is actually somewhat good for the society because it creates solidarity among the society. How? If I commit any mistake, to against me and to control me, people are coming together. One Nirpaya case actually made this whole country stand together and protest against that act and brought an amendment in the criminal law. Like, of course, that is a crime which is a very bad act, but that act created solidarity among the people. Therefore, crime is not actually a bad thing always. Sometimes it is also good for the society in other way that not said by me, it's Emile Durkheim said. So So it creates solidarity among individuals. So in that creation of solidarity, what plays a major role? Social control. My dear friends, all society practices social control. The regulation and the enforcement of norms. The underlying goal of social control is to maintain social order, an arrangement of practices and behavior on which society members base their daily lives. My dear friends, the means of enforcing rules are known as sanctions. My dear friends, sanctions can be positive as well as negative. Sanction here is nothing but punishment, or we can take it as a punishment. Punishment, of course, is a negative word, but sanction is something, a kind of positive word. So positive sanctions, to make people behave in a proper way, that those who are good for the society, those who did many great things for the society, who invented something for the society, who actually behaved well in the society, those people can be given some positive sanctions, like awards, rewards, all these Padma Vibhushans, all these awards, achievements, or simple increment to a faculty, or a faculty who is publishing in Scopus Index will get an increment of this much amount by the Vice Chancellor. These are all what is positive sanctions which makes a person to continue in the right path. And the second thing is, my dear friends, in a social control, negative sanctions, that is called as punishment. That negative sanction for punishment for violating norms, violating the rules, violating the laws of country, being arrested, and is a punishment, and that giving some punishment to stop that individual from the future crime, and also teaching the others that if you are committing certain kind of crime, you will also be punished like this. My dear friends, punishment gives very important thing is deterrence. So now moving on to the philosophy of punishment. So punishment comes under negative sanctioning. Got it? My dear friends, when it's come to negative sanctioning punishment, there are different approaches. In earlier time, what happened in a pre-classical school of time, what happened? Crime considered as, one individual is committing crime because he was influenced by demons. One individual who influenced by demon, right, is actually prone to commit a crime. If any individual commit crimes, people believed in the classical period, pre-classical period, that individual committed a crime because of the demon's influence. Therefore, that individual was immediately executed. Or people believed all these crimes were happening in the society because of the witches, the black magic people. And therefore, thousands and thousands of witch women were burnt in England and other countries, pre-classical era. From there, a development in the science, technology, social sciences, philosophy, judicial sciences, law, my dear friends. Slowly from that point to we develop that it is not because of some kind of theological or spirits ka influence or demons or influence. It is not because of that. There is another theorist developed a concept. It is because of individuals' behavior and individuals, born. But the criminals are by born. It was established by Cesare Lombroso, an Italian anatomist or physicist, who conducted a study among the Italian prisoners, and he narrowed down the certain physical features of an individual, and said those who are having these kind of physical features are prone to commit crime. And also there are developed Sheldon's theory that metamorph, endomorph and ectomorph, that physical appearance of that relationship between a physical appearance of an individual and to commit crime. Then slowly it emerged to biological understanding. From there it moved on to the next level, that biology is not a matter. What matter is social factors. Where that individual born, from what background he born, that plays an important role of that individual's behavior. Then psychological factors. That individual psychology developed because of certain situations and certain scenarios that influence on individual to commit crime. Then economic factor has come. Critical criminologists and radical criminologists say that all these laws are actually created for the welfare of rich and not for poor, to control the poor to accumulating the resources of this world. They have created law and they are keep on punishing the poor people. Those who are committing the crimes or poor. Different aspects have been emerged. Understanding of crime, understanding of that the approach towards crime was changed over a period of time. Along with that, punishment philosophies and policies also changed, my dear friends. I told you that Cesare Lombroso, by using that Cesare Lombroso's idea, by using that Cesare Lombroso's concept, British, who ruled most of these countries in the world, created the law called Criminal Tribe Act, Denotified Community Act. All these people should be, in the prison or the place actually allocated for them after 5 o'clock. Many criminal tribes have been arrested without any of their wrongful act, only because they are born and brought up in that particular, group or community. There are many examples in India. There are many examples with regard to Australia. There are throughout the world, wherever they ruled, they brought the Criminal Tribe Act and Denotified Communities Act, and they have prevented, they have actually arrested and brutally attacked them to remain their power. They used these concepts. Cicero Lombroso in the classical era. But slowly, my dear friends, the theories evolved. These things evolved. What we are discussing today, going to start our class. Now you would have understand that how crime, approach of crime and the theories of crime emerged. Along with that, punishment philosophy and policies also took a different dimension and emerged as towards a positive thing. First, my dear friends, retributive. Still it is there in action. That how much suffering I suffered, the same suffering the person who committed against me also should suffer. Simple. That is retributive. Like, it starts from, law of Moses, right? Then it starts from code of Hammurabi, eye for an eye, hand for an hand, life for life. Then slowly it moved on to how much suffering I got, the same suffering you should got. And that was used by the state to prevent the society from the conflicts. Retributive, number one. Number two, deterrence. Deterring that individual who committed the crime and stopping that individual from the future crime if he might commit. That is called as specific deterrence. And there moving on to the second, that is general deterrence. That if you general people, those who are in general people, if you commit any kind of mistake, and you will be also punished like him. So be careful, don't do that. That is called as general deterrence. Under deterrence theory and philosophy, my dear friends, two aspects. One is general deterrence and another one is specific deterrence, what I explained now. From there, we moved on to the reformation aspects and rehabilitation aspects, that changing that individual inside the prison and making him to not commit any future crime, and after certain period of time he should come out as a normal man, then he should live a successful life. All these actually theories has a big history, my dear friends. Big development happened in the theories that I'll also explain. Then we moved on to reintegration, that once he comes back to the society is not accepting him because of various this taboos and the people's mindset, and he labeled. Once he labeled or branded, he will continue that. Therefore, what it is moved on to the next stage, that is called as a reintegration of those offenders into the society. The third and last part, before sending them into the prison, after a certain kind of wrongful act, that individual should not be sent to the prison. Instead of sending to the prison, make him rehabilitate or correct himself within the society. That is called as probation, or giving non-custodial measures. Then that the concept of non-custodial measures emerged. My dear friends, I explained retributions, then deterrence concepts. Both retribution and deterrence concept, it's very simple. That the society should not suffer. If a bad element prevails in the society, that leads to a problem in a society. Therefore, my dear friends, those elements are segregated from the society, and they have actually exiled or sent to different places in different countries. Especially this was actually started by the British people, sending the people those who are against the government or those who are actually did a wrongful act, sent to the different islands. They have created separate big prisons. Like we know our own Kalapani, that in Andaman Nicobar, also one of the prison used by the British during their time. Andaman Nicobar mein hai, for Australia, then this side America. America is also initially it is a place of punishment, sending the British people to America. That those Americans then from there it is developed as a separate country. It's a big history, my dear friends. So the concept of prison is very simple. Isolating an individual, those who actually creates a disturbance, creates a problem for the peaceful function of the society, isolating them to these different places as a punishment, making him to stay in that place with the cruel things like solitary confinement, or inducting iron rods, many some specific punishments within the prison. But concept is isolation. So from retribution moved on to isolation, because why all these criminological theories that one individual is committing crime not because of him, because of some demons, not only because of biological, because of economy, because of social, because of psychological. Therefore, the state's responsibility comes, it is not only because of that individual, because of the state's responsibility is also involved in that. There is no equal sharing in this society. When there is when there is only scarce resources in the world, when the resources are scarce, people tended to compete. And those who are winning the competition, they'll keep on develop their resources, and others will made as workers or poor only. For them, there is no other option committing crime. There are many theories in that, my dear friends. Therefore, government started thinking, and the researchers also developed the aspect state has a role in it. Therefore, what to do? That state will not take the responsibility that yes, I am the reason for all these crimes. Therefore, they have moved to a different approach, that isolating them from punishing them, that hand for hand, eye for eye, life for life, moved on to the sentencing policy like isolation. So this isolation, through isolation, they created deterrences. Started sending the people to prison. Yes, committed any mistake, sent to prison. Even if he did any contempt, sent to prison. Even for us now, if anyone committed any small mistake against us, we are not forgiving him. We forgotten the forgiveness. Immediately file an FIR, take him to prison, send him jail, send him jail, send him jail, send him jail. Keep on sending jail. Happens two things, my dear friends. One, that prisons will overcrowd, and people will die inside, without any facilities. And of course, it is a burden for the state, because state need to spend huge money in it. Number one. Number two, even after that deterrence, even after sending to the prison, those who comes out from the prison, not rehabilitated, not reformated, again he is committing the same mistake again and again. That is called as that individual becomes habitual in nature. Prisonization made him as a recidivist. Recidivism, my dear friends, concept recidivism, that one individual, even after the sentencing, coming out from the prison, committing the mistake or crime or wrongful act again considered as recidivism. My dear friends, effectiveness of criminal justice system of one country analyzed based on two parameters only. That is, one is recidivism and second one is desistance. If the recidivism is more, desistance is less. Desistance means a permanent state of non-offending. If the desistance is more, a recidivism is less, which means a criminal justice system is effective. If the recidivism is more and the desistance is less, which means that criminal justice system is not effective, which means that deterrence is not working at all. So the world countries started facing that even after sending them to prison, even after the punishment of sentencing for 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, or sending out to the prison, after he come out, he is again doing it because of many factors, my dear friends. Number one, that the rehabilitation programs given inside the prison are not appropriate to their behavior and determinant factors. And outside, when they come out after the sentencing, people are labeled him or branded him as a criminal. Then again there is no other choice for him, he will commit, continues that. Therefore, prison, sending the prison, that deterrence theory slowly, it got, it's not successful. I will not say failure, but it is also not a successful one. Therefore, moved on to the other aspects. That is what? That reintegration. They tried. Once he completed the sentencing, he just came out from once he come out from the prison, there was created half a house to merge with the society. Then they created reintegration offices across the world to reintegrate that individual into the society as a normal person into the community, tried to interact with the community to try to encourage him, help him, he completed rehabilitate, consider him as a normal man, and given an employment opportunity. Slowly the state started thinking from the reintegrated perspective. And now we moved on to the non-custodial measures, which is not sending them into the prison only. For certain kind of crimes, we started, especially those who are under 21 years age and under 18 years age. Children are actually not considered as any criminals or deviants only. They are considered as children in conflict with the law because of their cognitive development is not that much developed to understand what they are doing, understand about their act. That is actually separated. Then those who are under 21 actually given the option of Probation of Offenders Act. In India it is 1958 that sending him under the supervision for 1 or 2 years under the probation officer, making him understand what he did. Then community servicing, all other non-custodial measures have been come up in difference. And in prisons also, instead of in a rounded building or panopticon, it's called as panopticon style, panopticon prison structure, we now moved on to the open air jails, open air systems, and more focused towards rehabilitation and reintegration strategies, my dear friends. So all these things in India had happened through the various jail reforms committees and other things which we are going to, I am going to discuss now, my dear friends. How that India's prisons punishment policy developed along with the international punishment philosophy and policy, my dear friends. My dear friends, in the second part, that India's punishment philosophy and policy. My dear friends, it starts, that recorded history of Indian punishment philosophy starts from Kautilya's Ashta-shastra. Every one of you might have heard about or learned about Kautilya's Ashta-shastra, which is one of the, a prominent document, philosophical document, which is used in every social science and philosophical disciplines as well as science disciplines these days, especially when it's come to defense studies and strategics. My dear friends, in Kautilya's Ashta-shastra, from book 1, concerning about the discipline, book 2, the duties of government superintendents, in book 3 very importantly, which is concerning law, book 4, which is about the removal of thorns, book 5, about the conduct of courtiers. Book 6, the source of sovereign states. And book 7, the end of six-fold policy. Book 8, which deals with concerning the vices and calamities. Book 9, which deals with the work of an invader. Book 10 deals with relating to war. Book 11, the conduct of cooperation. Book 12, concerning a powerful enemy. Book 13, strategic means to capture a fortress. Book 14, the secret means. And book 15, the plan of treaties. My dear friend, in each and every book, somewhere or other, Kautilya's discussed about the concept of sanctions. As I told you in the beginning, the concept of positive sanction as negative sanctions in each and every book. Almost in every chapters, there was something related to positive sanction and negative sanctions in Indian literature, my dear friends. The sad part is most of the international theorists are actually not, concerned or not given any focus towards Indian literature. But now the trend is changing. Most of the international scholars are looking to the Indian philosophical ideologies towards each and everything. Punishment, it is not, it's one among them. So all the books, all the 15 books, Kautilya's Arthashastra dealt about positive sanction and negative sanctions. In negative sanctions, it dealt about prison. It dealt about the concept of imprisonment. What kind of punishment should be given to what kind of offences committed by what kind of individual. Such a marvelous draft was actually made by Kautilya. Right? It's a very ancient document. It's that Indian punishment philosophy, the recorded punishment philosophy, my dear friends. It starts from Kautilya's Arthashastra, and other, of course, there are other religious-tic Vedic documents are there, but those documents are religious texts. But as a document, my dear friends, as a punishment philosophy and as a punishment policy, which is actually exhibited or which is actually implemented and understand, that kind of recorded history starts with Kautilya's Arthashastra. So it discusses about every aspects of punishments, who to be punished, and on what case it should be punished, who should be forgiven, on what background that individual should be forgiven. Everything was discussed in that. And from there, after then Mughal emperors, then historical happenings and all, then next recorded documents, starts from after British people. In British, first jail committee, second jail committee, third jail reform committee, and fourth jail committee, and fifth jail committee. From fourth and fifth jail committee onwards, they have spread across the world and they have established their empire like anything. When it's come to India, they have actually, based on those committees, they have enacted an act called Prison Act of 1894, which is into the force for 112 years in this country, including 58 years after independence, my dear friends, which is largely focused on isolation, deterrence, and of course cruelty. Slowly, after after getting independence, after the 1950, after we created our own Constitution of India, so we have actually maintained the prison and jails always under the list 2, that is state list. So in India, prison and jail administration, the punishments comes under state list. So the first committee, All India Jail Committee, was formed in 1990 to 1920, was a major landmark, my dear friends, when it's come to Indian punishment philosophy and policy. In that All India Jail Committee, three major things it has focused. Number one is care for prisoners. See, at last they are humans, right? Of course, their acts are inhuman, but that is not because of them, right? As I discussed in our earlier, topics in the beginning, I explained that one individual, if is committing any kind of mistake, that is not only because of him, that particular individual. It is because of many factors involved in it. Many determinants factors are involved in it. Psychological, social, economic, political. Many are involved in that. Therefore, punishing that individual in a cruel manner, which affects that individual very badly, and slowly he becomes prisonized. And when one individual is prisonized, then you cannot create any deterrence through imprisonment. Therefore, that was the first All India Jail Committee, which was established 1919 to 1920, which is a major landmark. First thing it focused, and it has actually spoke about the care for prisoners, treatment for prisoners, given recommendations focusing more towards rehabilitation and reformation programs, engaging them inside with various reformative or rehabilitative activities, providing them a space, providing them a good physical environment. Providing them the good physical environment will help them to reform and rehabilitate. Providing them a good food, and respecting their human rights as well, was the first major thing, my dear friends. Second, in that All India Jail Committee, which was actually, that second important major landmark is actually through that All India Jail Committee, is that separation of executions and custodials, ministerial staffs, technical staffs, and non-custodial measures was the second important thing. Because I told you that world was actually, that concepts towards the world idea was actually changing and emerging towards a positive way. That actually reflected in India as well, and these kinds of change happened because of this through this All India Jail Committee. The second is separation of executions, custodials, then the creation of ministerial staffs, technical staffs, and other things happened, was one of the second important recommendations in that All India Jail Committee, my dear friends. Third, very importantly, diversification of prison institutions, which actually helped us to, even now the recent, we are creating that open air jail system, which was established in many states in this country, and those are really successful in rehabilitation and reintegration of the prisoners. That is also, that starting point is actually this diversification of prison institutions. Small, medium, and larger institutions. Small institutions focusing on small petty offenders and petty offences, and keeping them for some time and releasing them. Then, that sub jails, district jails, central jails. That diversification of prison institutions was happened because of the recommendation of All India Jail Committee, which is very important, my dear friends. A central prison it's a big institution which has all kind of facilities to develop and rehabilitate, focusing more towards rehabilitation and reintegration. And this district jails and the sub jails for the small petty offenders, and creating some deterrence to the punishment and sending them back to the normal life. So that diversification of prisons institutions was happened as a third important landmark through that All India Jail Committee. Then, my dear friends, after independence, there are good, when that the jail and prison comes under state list, there are earlier under presidency, there are good number of committees and reform committees formulated by the presidencies, especially in it starts from 1940 to 41, that Mysore Committee of Prison Reforms. Number 2, UP Uttar Pradesh Jail Reform Committee in the year 1946. Then Bombay Jail Reforms Committee in the year 1947 to 48. Then during that time, good number of legislation also had come up. especially I told you that non-custodial measure, we started focusing towards non-custodial measure, that is probation, that Bombay Probation of Offenders Act 1936, one of the important milestone, my dear friends, in that non-custodial measures. Then UP offenders, under Probation of Act, UP offenders Probation of Act 1938 is also one of the important legislation. Probation, my dear friends, which is very important in the society. And even United Nations also recommends the non-custodial measures, especially when it's come to probation, giving, there are various provisions is there, providing admonition, that a strict warning, and let him go away from that. Then ordering a probation supervision under a probation super officer. See, my dear friends, probation of offenders, helps in different way. Number one, I told you earlier, if you are sending someone to prison, ultimately when he comes out from the prison, the chances of labeling by the others and labeling by the local people, or branding by the local people, is more. And also, some of the time, the police officers also, of course, in India it's happening, most of the countries happening, that put up cases, fabricated cases are placed among them, even after if he is not committing the crime, he was booked under any crime and sent back to the prison by the police officers. That is also happening in many countries, including India. See, I went to prison, I served sentencing for my punishment. Through the programs, I rehabilitated and reformated, and I am coming out from the prison. Next day morning, the local inspector calls me, अरे आ जाओ, अरे क्या रे आ गया क्या वापस? हाँ, और एक 2-3 केस था, मेरे को नहीं मिला आदमी, अब जाओ, जाके आओ, साहब बोल रही है ना, जाके आओ, खत्म है. Without doing, I have gone to the prison. Slowly, after second time and third time, I was sent to prison without doing. Third time, I'll do it and I'll go. A person becomes recidivist easily. So sending prison also has its own effects. Number one, I told you that labeling and branding. Number two, chances of fabrication case or put up cases. Number three, it is actually creates pro-association among the hardcore criminals. And it separates from the normal society, from the good people. The differential association increases among that individual. Then behavior it falls, then knowledge of prison, knowledge of prison, that law things and all, makes him to do a more serious offences than the earlier one. So these are all the problems which are having, and also of course overcrowding, one of the major problem throughout the world. State need to spend a huge amount in it to prevent all these things. Probation, my dear friends, one of the best way. So without sending that individual to prison, forgiving him for small offences, or sending him to sending him, especially in India, those are even that if the person commits any mistake which is punishable up to 7 years, those people also can be sent on probation under Probation of Offenders Act, under probation supervision by the probation officer, which is one of the milestone, my dear friends, which is not actually implemented in an effective way. That is different, but it is there. That was started through the Bombay Probation Offenders Act 1936, then UP Offenders of Probation Act 1938. These are all the major development in legislations. After that, slowly many states actually started implementing or creating the jail reforms committee. Especially number one is East Punjab jail reform, which is actually started in 1948 to 49. Then Madras jail reform committee, which is actually established in 1950-51. Then Orissa jail reform committee of Orissa, established in 1952 to 55. Then Travancore and Cochin Jail Reform Committee, which is established in 1953 to 55. Then UP Jail Reform Committee 1955 to 1956. Then Maharashtra Jail Industries Creation and Reformation Committee, that was established in 1958 and 59. So all these committees brought up good changes in the prison structure and prison administration. But best overthrow was actually happened after Justice A.N. Mullah Committee recommendations. The government of India formed a committee to, a reformation committee to, revisit the Indian prison policy by Honorable former Justice Ain Mullah in the year 1980. That committee submitted the report in the year 1983, which 658 recommendations about the jail structure, jail environment, prison industries, rehabilitation program, reformation program, industries inside, treatment of offenders, rights, many things, my dear friends. And it is also recommended for a national level policy for prison, and which was actually very recently, it was also enacted by the government of India. All these developments, very, very importantly, international development, that is that United Nations standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners, the famously called Nelson Mandela rules, which has 122 rules, speaks about the treatment, all these things. But my dear friends, in this 21st century, where we are, we know what we need to do and what we need to focus on that. Again, coming back, my dear friends, retribution, eye for an eye, hand for an hand, life for a life, which is understood by the most of the countries. It is not a right way of treating one individual, because we understood why crime is happening. And of course, what is prevalent now is isolation, deterrence, rehabilitation, reformation, reintegration, and of course non-custodial measures. So in India, which is prevalent is isolation and sending them to the prison, that incapacitation or incarceration, which is more in India even now in this century, 21st century. But what we need to do, the society is, in the beginning I told you, society is complex and developing more and more and more, and the division of labor is actually expanding, that the interdependence is actually getting more, and the society is becoming more organic solidarity in nature. As M.L. Durkheim stated, in an organic society, in an organic solidarity society, we need to focus more on reintegration and reformation or restoration, restoring into the existent earlier state. That restoration policy we need to focus on more, which we are not, but we are on the way to reaching that point, my dear friends. Why? Because, see, my dear friends, prisons are always, it's a burden for one society. In 2014, there were 6 to 7 prisons were actually closed by the Netherlands. Why they have closed? Because there is no prisoners. Why there is no prisoners? Because they have focused more towards non-custodial measures. It's not like there is no crime, but they are more focusing towards non-custodial measures through the reformative policies, restorative policies, and reintegration policies. They have changed prisons into hospitals. They have changed prisons into universities, education institutions. They have also rented two prisons to other country, Norway. So this is what I always take it as an example. A country like India, of course, the population is more, and that due to that we are having in India, we are having many socio-economic and political problems. So when the socio-economic political problems ultimately increases the creates a problem in psychology of an individual. So all these things actually makes one individual to commit crime. So therefore, if it commits a crime, of course, isolation is important when you are isolating into the prison, but that rehabilitation, reformation program which was actually we are providing in India, that's the question, whether it is effective or not. No study had been conducted, scientifically to prove those rehabilitations are effective and it is actually rehabilitated this many population in this country. Why? Because, why I am saying this, see, for every individual, he commits a crime for different reasons and different determinant factors. For example, I may commit crime because of my psychological problem. One individual may commit because of social problem. One individual commit because of some economical factor. Within that, there are different sub factors are there. It differs from one individual to another. And giving a same kind of rehabilitation programs, to everyone uniformly, giving a same kind of reformation programs, giving everyone equally, will it serve the purpose? Ultimately, the answer is no, my dear friends. Because if the programs and policies are more focused towards social determinants and psychological determinants, it only helps to the person who actually committed the crime or wrongful act because of the social determinant and psychological determinant. What about the person who committed because of economic determinant factor, political determinant factor, or combination of 2-3 determinant factors? The answer is no. We are segregating the prisoners in India based on their offences, based on their seriousness, that based on their age, and based on the severity of the crime. But we are not actually segregating any of our offenders or prisoners based on the determinant factors. That segregation also need to be done in India. Therefore, the rehabilitation and reformation programs can be possible, and it will be effective for those. We can give according to their determinant factors, which will be more effective, number one. Number two, my dear friends, we don't have the concept of reintegration. Because we don't have the concept of reintegration in this society, once the person is out from the prison, and if that individual is facing a lot of problems and difficulties. Number one, that the relationship he got inside the prisons maintains also outside. Number two, if he gets into the normal society, people are not actually approaching him as a normal man. They treat him differently. The bias and taboos makes him to feel uncomfortable. Either he will dislocate along with his family to other place, or he will come back to the same criminal career, crime as his career. So what happens? We need a reintegration policies and reintegration officers, reintegration system in this country, which we are lacking. So if you have believed in custodial measure, if you are believed in isolation, if you are believed in rehabilitate, we can able to rehabilitate one individual in the prison, inside the prison through this policies and all. But when he comes out from the prison, we also need to keep a system for reintegration, which we are not keeping it. And fourthly, my dear friends, we need to focus more on the non-custodial measures for certain kind of serious offences as well. Because again I am telling you that individual is not committing crime because of that particular individual, because of many factors influenced him to commit that. So non-custodial measures, we need to increase the ordering of probations, we need to increase the ordering of community service, we need to increase the order of more focus towards more restorative concepts. Unless or otherwise, we still will be in the deterrence ideology, isolation ideology, and a common rehabilitation reintegration ideology to everyone, which makes our criminal justice system ineffective, especially our prison system ineffective, my dear friends. Open to you all. You can ask any questions related to this in the message. I am happy to answer, and thanks for the opportunity to the organizers, and it's a wonderful session, and I am happy to be a part of that. I think little I'm early, but I am happy to answer your questions, my dear friends. Thank you.